Hey guys, in this video, I kind of wanted to just talk about my um, situation of how I ended up here. How I ended up being in the looks max space or whatever. Um, Trying to help people out with, real information, no BS. Um, but I wanted to go into the background of my situation, how exactly I ended up here in the first place. So for a little bit background, I traveled a lot during my earlier years. This was like pre-middle school mostly. And so I lived all over the world, and there's benefits to that, yes. And this was because of military, family stuff. So because of that, I had to travel all over. Um, and some of it just it is so socially isolating because you had to, constantly move, learn a new language, make new friends, whatever. I feel like that was a big part in developing my personality. Um, was being pretty dependent on myself through that time period. But I wanted to give you kind of a description of my situation that led up to this point. So my middle school experience. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't horrible. I mean, I felt it was decently normal. But I didn't really get into trouble. I was pretty good in school. Actually, I was really good in school. Um, and then I moved again. I moved again from like straight after middle school to high school. I moved again, totally new state, totally new place. Um, to high school. This is kind of where everything went downhill for me, to be honest. Obviously, puberty's happening, whatever, all the hormones um, rushing through your body can cause mood swings and etc. But my situation was a bit odd, you know. First off, first of all, I was extremely short, like extremely short. Oh my gosh, I think I was like in high school. I think I was like 5'3" in high school. I'm pretty sure I was like 5'3" in high school. I'm almost positive. Um, like yeah, 5'2", 5'3" in high school. Just super short. Um, and I didn't really like talking to people that much. I was always very um kept within myself. And during this time, I had like zero friends. Like I had one friend maybe, but it was kind of on and off. And we didn't really like connect a lot until later on. And so like freshman year of high school, it was so brutal. It was just, oh my gosh. It's so hard to describe. So during freshman year of high school, literally just felt like a drift. I still did well in school. I worked hard in school. I did well in school. Got a good GPA, got good grades. But I was always just so short. I was just completely malnourished. I was super skinny, like ridiculously skinny. Like not even like typical high school kid skinny. Just like insane. I'll have to put up a picture, just like malnourished level. I wouldn't even fit in a compression shirt that was like XXX extra small. It was insane. I have a picture I can show. But during this time period, yeah, I was moving along. I tried to make friends. I really didn't make a lot of friends. Girls wise, I mean, there was one girl. Okay, there was one girl I was interested in at the time. Um, and but I was just always nervous. Like my inhibition was way too high, regardless. Like it was just always too high. I just could not talk to girls. And I think I know why. I think I know why that is. I'll talk about that later. But I just was super on high inhib, couldn't talk. And my sleep was horrible. This was very important. This was like a catalyst for the rest of my life basically. My sleep was horrendous. I would stay up, I'd watch, these videos, these YouTube videos of like people like gaming and crap. I was big into gaming, like super big into gaming, and I just like watch people play video games till 2 a.m. like every night. This was like consistent. This was not just, a one-time thing I would do on the weekends or something. Um, I'd always just and I was just obsessed with gaming. I never really had my own gaming rig or PC or anything. I wanted one so bad. But I just watched these kids um play games on YouTube. It was insane. Um so every day, I'd go to school, I'd end up sleep deprived, I'd just be miserable. And this really started to snowball. People really don't realize how much sleep can impact you, especially when it's chronic deprivation. In my case, like it was so chronic. Um, it was so chronic. I ended up, developing depression, like pretty severe depression, um, over the course of, the next 4 or 5 years. Um, and during this time, I just hated people. I really just hated people. I was the OG, ND stare kid. I was the school shooter kid. You'd think I was the school shooter. In fact, I even got suspended one day because I said something in class and they thought I was a school shooter or something. That was in middle school though. I said, "Oh yeah, I yelled shots fired in class and they fucking suspended me." Um, because it was like there was like a Florida shooting the day before or something. It was goofy. Um, but yeah, I was the quiet kid. I was the loner kid. I really just didn't have friends at all. Like I said, one friend, pretty much. Freshman year, that went by pretty quickly, I'd say. It wasn't my worst year in high school. I even remember in freshman year, people would try to socialize with me, and I would just reject them instantaneously. Um, and this was for a couple reasons. Like I mentioned, I was just super antisocial. Part of that was my sleep, of course, and this depression building up. Just horrendous habits in the first place. Wouldn't eat jack. Um, so this was a part of that catalyst. But combined with that, I just had this hatred. I don't know why. I had this hatred for people because I think I know what it is. I always thought I was always very comparative. I'd always compare myself. I always try to be the best at anything and everything. I think this is one reason why I did really well in school actually was because I was very competitive in that sense. I always wanted to be the best at everything, and when I'm not the best at something, I really tend to criticize myself to a point where it becomes pretty self-destructive. I think some of that is good, but in my case, it's very overpowered. Even now, I still do that. I still do that on a daily basis. But this this self-criticizing part of me was so powerful that it would impact, any social relationships or just conversations, right? So when people would approach me, I'd always turn them down. I still kind of do some cases, but it's better now. But back then it was horrendous. Um, I would turn people down because I thought people hated me. Maybe they did, but I always thought people hated me. Um, and that was partially just self-destructive from my end, but it was also like treatment. Again, I was completely socially isolated, right? Um, sometimes, I would make attempts, right, to be friendly. I wasn't always, like this. I developed into this over time. I'd attempt to be friendly, um, and just get, rejected or just couldn't make connections with these people. My mind, like, it sounds corny, but to me, my mind really does work different than a lot of people. Oh, whoops. It works differently from a lot of people, in my opinion. Um, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just coping. So this really transpired into just a really dark time in my life. Um, so transitioning from freshman to sophomore year, it just got worse. So the depression was really just kicking in, really grinding my gears. I just could not connect with anyone. Um, I had my old friend from uh, freshman year was gone off the map basically. I have to mention I didn't have a phone. I didn't have a phone. I didn't have any like social media. I didn't have anything like that modern kids have to connect with each other. That's also something that kind of makes me stand out from a lot of these people at the time. Was yeah, I didn't have a phone. I didn't have any of this social media. So, in that case, I couldn't really connect with a lot of people in that case, but I think it also benefited me a lot. Um, but socially, completely isolated. My old friend was gone. Like, didn't hear from him for years. I'll talk about that later. Um, but yeah, it was just a brutal moment. I I didn't want to. I felt completely demotivated. I didn't want to do any. I didn't want to join any clubs or groups. Just talk to people in general. Um, And the thing is, like, you know when you're being counterproductive, like you know when you're doing something wrong or bad. You know that if you're playing a video game when you should be studying, you're fucking up, but you do it anyway. So you have this, inner talking inside of you. So you have your inner conscience talking to you about what you should be doing, what's wrong, what's right. And I knew what was happening, but I just moved on with it. I knew I was socially isolated. You know, I knew that this wasn't good for me, but I just continued to dwell in isolation. Um, and pretty much take comfort in the fact that I was socially isolated, just couldn't make friends, couldn't connect with anyone. This is the part of the neurodivergence pill, right? People, you know, with extreme neurodivergence tend to follow this trend of being extremely socially isolated. Um, so a lot of this is just genetic in the first place. I've heard stories. I don't really remember these, but as a kid, my dad, my dad said he'd leave me in the woods, right? Like we'd go on a hike. He'd leave me in the woods. They'd go away like just to see what would happen, if I'd freak out or whatever. And they said, or he said, you know, I wouldn't cry. I would just be like, whatever, and move on. So I guess part of it's genetic. My mom does have like or had pretty severe chronic depression, so I probably inherited some of that as well. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Um, so yeah, it was just a brutal part of my life. Could not do anything socially. I did have like Discord on my computer. Um, I had like my online friends, quasi friends, but it wasn't anything like real. And you'd only meet with them, a couple times a week. But I was just completely lost in the social sphere. And like I said, still at the time, still was extremely short, still was super malnourished. Like it was just brutal. I was actually probably the shortest kid in my whole school. Probably. I wouldn't be surprised. The area I lived in, everyone was pretty tall as well. I moved states as well, so um, that was also something. And then when it came to girls, girls were weird for me because first of all, I didn't have the confidence in the first place. I was short as shit. Most of the girls were taller than me. Um, like way taller than me, like fucking 4 inches taller than me. And so it was just brutal. I couldn't connect. I just hated myself. I hated my life. I hated everything really. I go home, I play video games and cope pretty much. That was pretty much my whole social experience. So junior year, pretty much the same thing. I mean, this I think there was a shift here. I started to get really obsessed with politics at the time. You know, I really started to be chronically online. I was chronically online, and at this point, it got to a point where I was just obsessed with politics. I was obsessed with being correct. I was just so just fucking just hated people in general. Again, it's all just spitballing. Um, no one wanted to be friends with me. You know, literally no one. Like, I'm not even joking. The closest thing I got to a friend at the time was this autistic kid at like at the lunch like the school lunch table. I'd like go and like sit with him. Here's the thing, guys. I was the kid who would sit at the table by himself, and everyone else sat at tables with other people. Like I was like the only kid, like one of the only kids. There's probably like two other kids, but some of those kids had very severe mental impairments. Um, so I was one of those kids who would sit at the lunch table and just eat by himself. Um, and this went on for my whole high school experience pretty much. I didn't even have a phone, right? I wasn't playing Clash Royale or anything. I wasn't even really distracting myself. Um, but I had this quasi friend, I guess. He was autistic. He tolerated me. So sometimes I'd sit with him if he was there at lunch. But it was just it was just brutal. I couldn't connect with people. I just couldn't connect with people. Something about my brain just would not click with most people. Um, and again, I still had this endearing hatred as well because of how I was treated. I was just cast away. No one wanted to do anything with me pretty much. And when people did approach me, I become hostile because of that. Um, so it was at this point where it really was crumbling. I became extremely suicidal, like extremely suicidal. Um, it's hard to talk about on camera like this. I don't know why it's very hard for me to talk on camera like this and not, tear up or crack or whatever. Break the what the fuck was I saying? The mat the mask is that's what the point of the mask is. No, I'm just fucking with you. That's pretty gay. But it was brutal. I did want to kill myself. Genuinely wanted to kill myself. Um, and that went on for like at least 2 years. And it wasn't just like a one-time thing either. I think about killing myself pretty often. Probably like I'd say like at least 5 times out of the week each week. Um, just absolutely miserable. Still would go home and cope and whatever, and it was just brutal. Um, Still extremely malnourished, still short as shit. Like I said, like probably around 5'3", I think. I think that was my height. You know what's weird too? Why didn't my parents like get me to like a pediatrician or something where I could have, gotten like growth hormone therapy for, idiopathic short stature or something, right? Um, I don't know why. I think, yeah, because I was genuinely like tiny. Um, like really tiny. My frame was shit as well. So at the time, you know, this is when I really started getting more black pilled during high school, the later high school. I knew about like kind of general looks maxing beforehand. I knew about like the gym culture, the whole Ziz stuff. I was a big like Ziz guy too later on. But this is where I really started getting black pilled. Um, and I just look in the mirror, and I just hated how I looked too, because my face was always fat as shit. I already had a pretty good base. My face was just always fat as fuck. It didn't matter what I did. And again, I was super lean too. Like I was really, really lean. It still was fat as fuck. Um, and it would just like sag down. And it looked horrible. It looked like I was way older than I was. It just looked unnatural. Um, Also, that my chin was not my chin, but my jaw, my bite was weird. I had a pretty bad overbite, sorry, and my jaw was like the way I positioned my jaw was very strange too, and I fixed that later on. But I just looked like a gooner basically. I just looked like a fucking gooner. You know what a gooner looks like? A gooner looks like someone who they just don't do anything, right? They sit in their room, they play video games, they goon, and then they repeat, right? And they just look like they have this like recessed look to them. Um, Still didn't have a phone. Still pretty miserable in the social sphere. Um, so get to my senior year, and this is where a lot of stuff starts to change. Senior year was it changed like right out of the gate pretty much because I met this guy. I'll call him Charlie. I met this guy named Charlie in my senior year of high school. And he was a very talkative guy, very like compelling, charismatic guy. Um, and he wanted to be friends. He was just extremely friendly. And even though I was still like this very like spiteful person, it didn't really bother him at all. Like this was a very rare thing I experienced was someone who were like he really didn't care whether or not I was an asshole or not. And this kind of struck something in me. So yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll hang out with you, sure, yeah. And at this point, met him in one of my first classes actually in high school in senior year of high school. Um, I was at this point where I really was improving. I started hanging out with him. I started hanging out with his friend group. I actually like talked to people for once, right? I wasn't, completely socially isolated. I'd actually have someone to, sit down and talk to at lunch and whatever. Um, and it was nice. It was really nice. Um, But it really, it all after experiencing just all that trauma from that social isolation beforehand, you really can't go back, right? You can't get that back. I never experienced like that high school, you know, how do you call it? Sugar coated fantasy or whatever. Where you're hanging out with your buddies, you're going to all these parties and whatever. You meet a nice girl, all this shit. Really just didn't exist for me. I think it doesn't exist for a lot of people, but especially was impactful on me. I never experienced like that teenage high school love, like never. I had like I mentioned this before briefly, I think, but I had a crush on this girl in one of my science classes, and I couldn't bring myself to even like talk to her. I couldn't, but like I could make like casual conversation, but I couldn't like ask her out or anything. It was just like so mind boggling to me. So it just mind fucked me. So I really had to deal with that aspect of just the neurodivergence where I just could not talk to a lot of these people. So brutal. Neurodivergence pill is so brutal. I'm one of the I feel like I'm one of the few people within the look smack space who like experienced it to a degree that I experienced it. You know, because genuinely could not just make friends. Couldn't even talk to a girl. Um, but yeah, and this this is where everything started changing. My senior year of high school. One other thing I want to know about junior year of high school was that I did I actually did go to prom, or yeah, prom, I guess. And it was basically like an arranged marriage. I'm not joking, by the way. I'm not even fucking making this up. So this this was during, yeah, so this was my junior year, I think. Yeah, junior year. So there was this foreign exchange student chick. I don't even remember her name anymore, honestly. But my parents were like, okay, Anton's not fucking talking to any girls. He's not going out. He's not interacting with people. What if we just like set him up with a girl to go to prom? Um, and I was like, okay, I don't want to ask her. I don't want to do any of this shit. If you do it, yeah, why not? Right. So, and I was down. So it was literally like an arranged marriage. I'm not joking you. We met up at this like, what was like a fucking Dairy Queen or something. I sit down. My parent, or I think it was my mom or dad. I think my mom was there, and this chick came. She was a foreign exchange student. Like I said, she was living with someone in my class, his house. I didn't really know him at the time. Um, so I was talking, and so yeah, they're literally like setting me up to go on a prom date. They're like, oh, you wanna? And she was this French chick. She knew how to speak English, just it wasn't anything amazing. So yeah, met this chick there, and she kind of liked me, I guess. I don't even know if she really liked me. I think it might have just been the opportunity. But, she agreed. She agreed that, it's prom, it's a once in a lifetime thing. So, might as well give it a shot. And I was like, yeah, me too. Also, I don't really talk to girls or anything. So, woohoo, I guess. So it gets set up. And yeah, I was actually pretty excited at the time. I was like, wow, I can, talk to a girl for once, I guess. Um, And so I prep everything. I still don't have a phone, by the way. I had an Apple Watch at the time. I think it was junior year. I got my Apple Watch or whatever, so I could technically like text people by scribbling on my fucking Apple Watch. But it's really just you can't compare that to a phone at all, especially with social media. So it was at this point, right, where I meet up with the chick. I borrowed my dad's car. I go up to the house. By the way, I was a shit driver. I was a terrible driver. Like I said, I didn't go out much, so I didn't really know how to drive well. Uh, I even failed my first driving test. Actually no, I think I failed my driving test twice, and then the third time I passed. Uh, yeah, pretty sure that's what happened. Yeah, I almost hit this motorcyclist, and then the other time I like didn't check my blind spot. But yeah, I met up with this chick, and in my head, everything was like going great. I pick her up, and then I try to like make conversation. Again, like when you don't have experience to, when you just don't have any experience with girls, you're really at a loss for what to do in the first place. You usually, I think with guys, you tend to overstep your bounds. You tend to get too excited too quickly. Um, and it really gets out of hand quickly. I think that's what happened with me. So I was just really excited because, again, it's like the only, girl I'd actually be going out with. So try to make conversation. Again, she's French, but she does speak English, but the language barrier, it's not a huge deal right now. In the car, I'm trying to talk to this girl, and I'm really just getting blanks, like, kind of just like yes, no responses, not really talkative at all. Um, something, but I was still pretty optimistic. Um, I got some pictures too. I'll have to find them. I got some pictures with her at like this park. Um, then I go to the actual prom, and it's like this. It's at this hotel. Yeah, it was a really nice hotel that was rented out. Like they rented out the ballroom or something. And so went there, and this is the part where you're supposed to like be dancing, having a good time, whatever. But I just couldn't. I just could not bring myself to like dance with this girl, or anything. Like I tried to talk to her. She wasn't really budging much with that. Um, and this is really brutal. Like the ND pill is really just kicking my ass here. At this point, um, it's almost like the way I would think about it. I was like, if I asked this is how my brain worked at the time. I was like, if I asked this girl to dance with me or to like go out on the dance floor, or whatever, um, like I'd almost like equate that to like a hookup or like some crazy commitment or like asking someone to be your girlfriend on the first date. I found it like kind of cringe, I guess you could say. But like something didn't click, and I never asked her to do that or anything. So when we actually got there in the first place, I literally just sat down, and just scrolled on my fucking Apple Watch. Like I'm not joking. I literally just sat down and looked at my notes or my reminders on my Apple Watch. Like, and then I just kind of let her do whatever. Yeah, pretty brutal, self-inflicted, mostly I'd say. So yeah, like the ND pill has really been probably one of my biggest obstacles throughout my whole journey. Yeah, I could not get myself to man up and do anything with this chick. Um, and it was, and another thing was like how I saw things. I still was pretty hateful. And like the way I'd see these parties and everything was pretty degenerate. You know, some of it was degenerate, but it's not all bad. Um, and the party itself was mostly just people, jumping up and down in a fucking circle. I was just like, oh, it's pretty corny. I don't want to do that. But then I'd fucking, scroll on an Apple Watch, at a table vacant of everyone else. So just brutal. Um, I don't even know where she went actually for a good chunk of that time. I think she went to look for her friends. Also, there was like at the time, I remember this as well. At the time, I had this like pounding in my gut. I don't know what it was, but like I could feel something in my gut, like it felt like it was about to explode. The music was very loud too, like it felt like it was shaking my gut from the inside out. Um, and I'm not even sure. I said that to this chick too. I said like my fucking gut hurts from being in here. Do you want to like go outside and walk maybe? And she was like, sure. Went outside, got some fresh air. Two kids, um, two of these kids just banging out on the fucking sidewalk. We go out, and I was just like, what the fuck? Like I just exited the hotel, and there's like these two high school kids just banging on the fucking sidewalk, and I was just like, oh my gosh. It's just like, oh my gosh, bro. Kept walking with this girl though, tried to make conversation, didn't go too well. Go back inside, and yeah, it's back to the same shit. Didn't ask her to dance or anything. Just couldn't. Um, Another thing is when your self perception is so nuked, or even if you're just someone who's ugly, like super ugly, or even like just super short, your standards automatically lower, right? Especially as a guy, your standards lower. Like this girl wasn't that pretty or anything, but but yeah, like I said, I didn't have any experience. I didn't know how to talk to girls in the first place. I just was so fucking afraid. Um, because I'd always been out and outcast pretty much. So it was at this point the party's over, and then there's this after party. Um, and so we go to the after party, and it's much better than the actual party itself. There's a lot more like stuff to do rather than just dancing or whatever. Um, and I basically said, we got there, and I was just like, okay, you do you, I guess. I'm gonna go play blackjack. So I literally just played blackjack for the rest of the night, and I did pretty well and won quite a bit. Um, but yeah, she just fucking disappeared pretty much. Um, I'm trying to remember if I drove her home or if she went home with a friend. I think she went home with a friend. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, but after winning the blackjack stuff, I tried to be, a gentleman or whatever. I bought her like a gift card with the earnings because it was like fake money or whatever, and then you could buy prizes. So I bought her like a bunch of gift cards. I left them for her, and then I left. But yeah, like I just could not do anything socially, especially with women. So yeah, this was also like a breaking point for me. I got in my car, about to drive home, and I was just like, holy shit, what just happened? Like why am I like this? Like what the fuck is happening? Why me? Right. I couldn't bear this dread and this fucking Just this fucking horrendous cycle I was in. But yeah, I mean, I went home and coped. Pretty much went home and coped, played my fucking video games or whatever. Anyways, that was kind of a tangent. I mean, this whole thing is a tangent. But um, back to like my senior year stuff. That was my junior year when that all happened. Senior year, I met this guy. Like I said, he was cool. Started hanging out. I actually had friends. I actually started to like learn how to make some social interactions. Um, and we hung out, and it was at this point where my feed was completely on my computer. I didn't have a phone yet. My feed was fucking completely swamped with like gym content. Um, just swamped. Like the Ziz, there was like all this Ziz crap going on. There was like the Sigma male bullshit. All this crap. This was like also when Hamza was big and Andrew Tate was big and all this crap. And I saw it and like I think it did help me because I took a look, inwards and I saw, wow, I'm really just a lazy piece of shit. I'm not doing anything. I'm not eating anything. I was looking at all these guys, getting jacked and whatever, and I was just like, damn, I want that to be me. I want to be, respected. Um, I want to be the best, whatever. So I really took it to heart, and this was my gym self phase. You know, this is the point where everything really shifted. I got into the gym and started working my ass off. And I'm like not even putting that lightly. And when I started out, I was natty and everything, but I got pretty jacked, all things considering. I trained for like 2 hours, 3 hours a day sometimes. After school, I just go straight to the gym and train. This was basically my new coping mechanism. I didn't play video games as much. This was kind of my new coping mechanism. And so really would just go in the gym and go fucking hard. Like I trained all the way till failure, past failure, whatever. Um, and it was a pretty life changing moment. And I got jacked quickly. Like I got pretty jacked quickly. Um, I did grow a bit as well during this point. Um, and this is when I was 18, right? This is when I was 18. I did grow a bit, quite a bit actually. And I was getting big pretty quickly as well. And I ate a shit ton too. I knew about the bulking stuff. I did my research. This is when I really started researching into gym content, how to build or how to be optimal in all things gym wise, muscle wise, just weightlifting wise. And yeah, I got big, I got really strong, and I got fat as fuck. Holy shit. My face was already fat, but now it was just a new level where I just looked like a fucking like the morphed JD Vance pictures. Like fucking like a pig, basically. Um, I was so fucking red, just like a tomato. But I got huge and I was happy. This was like my happiest point in my high school years. One of my, yeah, probably my happiest point. I was big, I was huge. My old friend from freshman year actually connected back with me. So I was like, yo, you want to go to the gym and get jacked? And he was like, I don't really know how to do that, but yeah. So yeah, we started working out together and that was great. Some of the best years of my life there. But yeah, really just in the gym self phase. My diet was pretty horrendous though. Even though I was bulking, and I would purposely do this by the way. So I'd make these protein shakes that were not just normal protein shakes. They would have protein powder. They have like a scoop of protein powder, some milk, um, some like part of a banana sometimes, and then I'd add fucking heavy whipping cream. Now, if you don't know what heavy whipping cream is, it is very calorically dense. I think it's like 60 to 90 calories in like a tablespoon, right? And I'd put uh like 6 scoops of that in my shake. We didn't, it's all just fat, by the way, and just chug that. It was horrible. I don't know what I was fucking doing, but I was bulking. I was like, calories are calories, right? So I was bulking. Um, but yeah, I got fat as fuck. And I didn't really care about my face either. I was really in this phase where it's just like, I want to get big as fuck. I don't care what I'm gonna look like facially. I just want to look big and I want to look fucking jacked. I didn't give a shit about anything else. It wasn't even like relevant to me. Like I didn't even think about it. Um, I literally just thought about getting big and jacked. I'd go home, watch these bodybuilders. I watch like Ronnie Coleman, talk about his olden days. I watch like all these Mr. Olympia clips, and I was just like, damn, like, I want that to be me. I want to be, I want to be fucking massive. I want to be on a stage. I want to be fucking rich and famous. I want to be the biggest guy there is. Um, Looking back, I'm like, that was pretty gay. Like, really? Really? I wanted to be fucking oiled up in a bikini in front of thousands of fucking people? No way. Like, no fucking way. Looking back. But at the time, it was kind of like my dream, because, right, I was still in the gym self phase. Still, like, I still wasn't extremely black pilled. I started getting black pilled, but, like, more on, like, the, like, height, width, muscle wise, I guess you could say. Um, but yeah, really good years. Started getting social connections finally. Started actually talking, interacting with people, and just having a good time in general. I got really strong too. Like, and this was all my bulk phase lasted like basically a year, I think. I think it was like a year max, really. Um, but things got a lot better, after that. I started actually, putting in some work into myself. Um, and then from there is when I started getting really black pilled, and where things really kind of just took a turn for the worse. I'll talk about that in another video. I think this video is long enough. But yeah, senior year was really when everything started going uphill for me. Um, and ever since, I think it's been uphill in a sense. Um, I definitely think it's been uphill. I don't think I've regressed much, at least in most categories. But it has been, a bumpy ride. It has not been linear in any sense. So yeah, I mean, that was my experience. I had to deal with the fucking neurodivergence pill or whatever. And eventually I overcame it. Right, where I got to a point where I met some people who actually just accepted my neurodivergence, I guess. Um, and then I just started working on myself, and building myself, in the gym, basically. So yeah, I didn't start social media or anything back then either. I started that much later. But yeah, that was kind of a summary of my high school experience. Obviously, the COVID was a huge part of that. You know, I didn't really specify it, but anyone going through high school at the same time would have known that, you know, freshman, sophomore year, a big chunk of that was COVID, and a lot of that was just online, completely, completely socially isolated. That probably was a huge variable in changing and shaping my personality and everything. But yeah, that's what it is. No, no girls in high school. Zero. Zip. Only later on in my college years, uh, was when any of that social interaction kicked in. But yeah, pretty brutal. Let me know what your high school experiences were. Um, I'm curious. You know, I still didn't like ascend or anything really facially. You know, at my end of high school. Senior year, like I said, I was really fucking fat. I was always red, just bloated. The cheek, like the cheek fat, just would not go away. I wanted to rip my face off, later on. Um, and my jaw was still fucked too. I'll talk about that later. But the way my jaw was protruding. But yeah, that was pretty much a summary. So yeah, let me know what your experiences were if you experienced something similar. I'm kind of interested. How many other people dealt with the neurodivergence pill as strongly as I did? I wonder. Um, did you overcome it? Did you not? You still dealing with it? I sure as shit am still, you know, dealing with it, becoming accustomed to it. Um, but yeah, let me know. I hope you enjoyed the long, um, talkative video. Maybe maybe unlocked something. No script, all raw. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. I'll see you later.